Hello, this is Jan back to read a story to you from The Biggest Story. We're on chapter 3. First, before we go on, I want to make sure you have something to cozy up with. I again have my cozy blanket, so I hope that you can get something to cozy up with. We're going to hear about a man named Abraham. He was called Abram before he knew God. And then once he knew God, God changed his name to Abraham. And through Abraham, God makes a lot of promises. And I'm going to tell you something. When God makes a promise, he keeps it. And so we're going to hear about Abraham and about the promises that God makes through him to build a people just for God. And do you know what? You and I, we're among God's people. We are his chosen people. So how great is that we are chosen by God? Let's read about Abraham. Not too long after the whole tower business, you remember that, don't you? God called a man named Abraham to leave his home and go to a new country. Actually, his name was Abram at this point, but everybody remembers him as Abraham. When God called Abraham, he made a lot of big promises. Remember what I told you about God's promises? He keeps them. He promised to bless Abraham and to bless everyone who blessed Abraham. And he promised to curse everyone who cursed Abraham. He promised Abraham a land and a child. God promised that Abraham would be the father of a great nation. A nation is a group of people, the one that I said that you and I are a part of. And that all nations would be blessed through him. Pretty much all the blessings that God wanted to give Adam and Eve, he promised to Abraham. And the best part, this time God was going to do everything himself to make sure that Abraham got his blessing so that it wouldn't get mixed up. You might think that God wanted to bless Abraham because he was such a swell guy. But Abraham didn't know God at all when God called him. And even after he got the call and all of these promises, Abraham could still be a liar and a bit of a scaredy cat. Abraham's life had a lot of ups and downs, but he had two things going for him. As it turns out, the only two things that really matter. God's promise to bless him and Abraham's belief in God's promise. That's all Abraham had, which was a good deal because it was all he needed. At times, it looked as if God wasn't going to keep his promises to Abraham. For one thing, it was about 100 years before Abraham and his wife Sarah, who used to be called Sarai, had a baby named Isaac, who thankfully was just always called Isaac. And then when the baby grew into a boy, God told Abraham to kill him. What? That must have seemed like a not so funny way to make a great nation out of Abraham. But Abraham listened to God anyway. And at the last second, God gave Abraham a ram to sacrifice instead of his beloved son. It was God's way of saying, I'll take care of rescuing. You just trust me. Eventually Isaac grew up, got married, and had some kids of his own. Twins, to be exact, Esau and Jacob. God picked Jacob to get the blessing, even though he was the younger brother and wasn't supposed to get the blessing. But God is God, so he gets to pick. Jacob had 12 sons, and this time it was the fourth son, Judah, who wound up with the best blessing. Jacob told Judah that a lion of a leader would come from his family. And we know that happened. So, we heard a little bit about God's promises. We know he works them out to happen. But do you know what our job? Our job is to be just like Abraham and to listen and to trust and to believe in God's promises. God has so many promises for you. He will never leave you or never forsake you. That's what it says in the Bible. He promises again, he will never leave you. So you can know in your heart of hearts, deep, deep, deep down in your heart, that God is always there. And he is just a whisper away. You can talk to God whenever you want. It's called prayer. And when you take that time to pray and connect with God, he will never leave you. He will always listen and he will always be there. So remember your job. You just trust and believe. Until next time. Goodbye.